Oh, didn't see you there. Just shaking my drink up.
Hey everybody, Dave here, Hidden Off Grid. Welcome back to another video. Let me just say this. If you are easily offended, you might not want to watch this video. Take it as for what it is. Just know that there's a good, underlying message to the video. So if you can make it through some of the crude things or that I might do or say, then you're fine. But hopefully you don't get offended by stuff that I do or say. It's a video, right? It kind of sounds like, if your house has more bullets than a target, if your house has more bullets than a shooting range, you might be a redneck. In this video, I want to talk about the 3 times that I should have been fired in my 30 plus years of working. So I've been working since about 18, 19 years old. Now before that I had paper routes and, picking weeds, digging ditches, stuff like that, but that's not a real job, right? It's not a W-2 or anything like that. So I'd say about from 19 on, I've been working ever since up to now. Is that even a word? I don't know. So I'm 46 years old, okay? And I've never been fired. I should have been fired 3 times. I've never been laid off either. I have quit work 3 times in my life by choice, and once before I went into the military, once when I got out of the military, I took a little bit of time off, So let me talk about the 3 times that I should have been fired. And like I said, please don't take any offense to anything I'm going to say in this video. It is what it is, right? Like I'm going to tell you, and then anyways, I was probably about 20 years old or so, and I was working for an alarm company, ADT, which I've talked about in previous videos. And I was installing alarms, and I went to a house, and I get there, and some Oriental people, I don't even know if you're supposed to say Oriental, but some Oriental people answered the door. And they immediately said, okay, you're here to install an alarm. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you need to take your shoes off. I'm like, what the heck, I can't take my shoes off. OSHA rules tell me I can't take my shoes off, right? They're steel toe boots. And for what I'm doing, I need to wear these boots, right? So I can get in trouble. But honestly, because I've, run into this a few times before, it kind of got annoying. And it's just like, I can't install your alarm because it's OSHA rules, blah, blah, blah. But this time, all right, fine, I'm just gonna take them off, I've even had people tell me to take off my boots, or if I'm gonna leave them on, to put booties on and stuff like that. So there is ways around it, but it's really a religious thing, I think, but culture-wise. But anyways, neither here or there, that really doesn't matter, okay? Now, when I got back to the shop and whatnot, I was telling my boss about it, I was like complaining and stuff, and I was like, yeah, these ching chongs told me to take my boots off, and I kind of said it loud, okay? And, I'm young, right? I'm just, 19, 20 years old, and I'm spouting off saying, I don't know if that's technically racist, but it's some slang terms, right? And, somebody took offense to what I said, okay? Now, my boss didn't say anything right there at all to me. Didn't really, you can't be saying that or nothing, He later told me, like a day or 2 later, pulled me into the office and said, yeah, somebody heard you. They took offense of that. And I really should be letting you go right now, but I'm not because, we need you, blah, blah, blah. Cock-a-doodle-doo. So yes, that was one time I should have been fired for saying that. And looking back, being 46 years old now, having traveled a lot of different areas in this world, experiencing other cultures, working with many other types of people from India, from different other parts of the world, Middle East, just all over the world really, right? And even Australians including, actually, believe it or not, but you just learn that these aren't things that you should be saying at work, right? I'm not a racist person at all. Give anybody a shirt off my back if they need it. I don't really care about skin color. I don't care about any of that stuff. But growing up, these are the things that we said because it was funny. We said funny stuff. I'm from an era where we said racist terms and, lots of different just slang terms that you're not supposed to call people. Like it was pretty common back then to say that stuff, and honestly, back then, I didn't care what people said to me, If an Asian person called me a round eye, I would just start laughing and crack my ass up, So that's just from the era that I'm from, how I grew up and stuff. We just said stuff like that, and I'm sure there's other people that probably grew up when I did and they can understand where I'm coming from. But in the workplace, you learn real quick, these aren't things that you should be doing or saying or anything like that at a workplace at all, so you get humbled real quick. Okay. So, if you're still here, and I hope you are, the second time I should have been fired is when I was going to install alarm system. I show up like 8:30 in the morning to this house, ring the doorbell a bunch of times. Nobody enters the door. I'm like, all right, fine. Get in the car, go home, and pretty much not making any money that day, even though I drove to the place, drove home. You don't get any money paid for that because I was a piece worker at the time. So I got paid per install, not to drive there and all that stuff, right? Since it didn't get installed, I didn't make any money that day. Well, it's like 4 o'clock at night or something. My boss calls me and he's like, yeah, such and such is on the phone. And they basically said that you didn't show up today. And I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, I was just there. And, many hours ago, and then nobody answered the door. So she's all right. He's like, all right, call her up right now. So I call her up and I'm like, okay, what's going on? I was there earlier. Like, she's like, no, you weren't here. I'm like, I was there at 8:30 in the morning and knocked and, rang the doorbell a bunch of times. And she's like, no, you weren't here. I need you to come out right now and install this alarm system, and here it is, 4 o'clock or something at night, And by the time I get there, starting to install alarm, most alarms at minimum take 4 hours to install. It's almost impossible to install a basic system from scratch and have it done in less than 4 hours. So I'm not even going to be getting out of there till like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So I was pissed, I was like, whatever. So I crack the phone down. This is like 95-ish, okay? 1995, okay? It's back when we actually had phones, right? And you could actually slam the phone down on people. And I slammed the phone down. And come to find out, the phone didn't hang up. And I started spouting off a bunch of, fuck, piece of shit, whatever, fucking I called her a bunch of derogatory terms, whatever. I mean, I was pissed. Like, you basically called me a liar to my face, and now I got to go out there and work till 9, 10 o'clock at night. So I was pissed. So anyways, I pack everything up, get dressed, whatever, get in the car, drive out there. As I was driving out there, I get a text. What am I talking about? A text. I get a page. Okay, now this is a text page because it wasn't old enough to just be a pager, so it was new enough to have a text over the page, right? I think it was Nextel, if I'm not mistaken. But so yes, I got a text page, and it said, "Do not go to your install. Do not go to your customer's house. Turn around. Go home." And I'm like, and it said, "Call me now." And it's like, what the heck is going on here? So I literally call the guy up, my boss up, and he's like, yeah, she heard everything you said. And I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And he's like, she heard everything you said after we hung up. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what the hell? Like, the phone didn't hang up apparently. And so anyways, yeah, I should have been fired for that one too. But whatever. What's funny about that particular that customer, no, I did not go back to install that, but somebody else did. And it was like maybe a year later or something like that, when I was doing a different job, my boss is like, you remember that person that called you a liar and whatever, and you hung up the phone and said all this stuff? He's like, I just uninstalled that alarm system. I ripped it out of their house, left all the holes there, everything. Because we don't normally leave holes, we usually patch them, right? And he's like, yeah, look in the back of my truck. And it was just like slammed in the back of the truck. Like he ripped the wire out, everything. And normally we wouldn't even rip the wire out, we'd normally just leave that in there. So he ripped everything out. And that lady, she was a nut job. I don't know how else to say it. Like, she was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And like, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm not gonna lie. I love conspiracies, right? And honestly, a lot of people that look at conspiracies, you know, not to get off on the weeds here, but there's a reason why they're conspiracies, because there's so much truth there, right? But the official narrative normally, you know, tries to disprove it. But what are you gonna believe? Anyways, she believed that people were getting in through her phone line. This is back when you had wired systems, phone lines into the house and all that. She thought people were getting into her house through the phone line and turning on the light in her fridge. She thought people were turning off the air conditioning, turning it on. She thought somebody was turning on her TV and turning it off. And she would open up the fridge. She'd tell us that the light's on, see? You know, it's like, so she was just not all there. So yeah, so in my defense, you know, it wasn't my fault. So yeah, those 2 times I should have been fired probably. And but the reason why I wouldn't, and I'll probably just go by that at the end. So one other time, 2011-ish or so, working for a government contractor, okay? Now, it was a very small company, about 100 employees. So I often sat in meetings with the CEO of the company, and because it was a very small company. So I've never met a CEO in my life. That's the first CEO I've ever met, blah, blah, blah. And there was some work that I was supposed to be doing. I was supposed to be testing a couple systems. Well, there was some bias towards one of the systems I was testing, so they're trying to skew the results and just say this system's better. I'm like, well, let me test this one, you know, and I'm told that this one's going to outperform this one, which is the one they all liked, so they wanted that system. So it was kind of a biased, you know, I'm like, why do you even want me to test these things if you're already biased towards this one anyway? So I pretty much was in the middle of optimizing the other system, and I got one of the head honchos in for that product from the person that loaned it to us, and they came in to help us tune it and get it tuned for what we were doing. And then when it still didn't outperform, I'm like, this is the reason why it's not outperforming is because it's missing a license. It needs a license to have full bandwidth, blah, blah, blah. And so we sat in a meeting with my manager and the CEO and I think the second in charge and all that. And I literally got in an argument right there in this meeting with the CEO, my manager, and the other guy. And I'm like, you know, why are you guys biased towards this? You didn't even give this one a chance. You know, it's like, this one is tuned out of the box. This one is not. Let me tune it. Let's do a real comparison here. And they're like, we don't like the fact that you went behind our backs and you told so-and-so that it's going to win and they have a better product. And they basically said to my face, that's tactless or whatever, I think is the word he used. So yeah, I thought for sure I'd get fired that day. And the reason why, and according to all of them, well, so I'll talk about the other 2. So the very first 2, the reason why I don't think I was fired is because number 1, they really needed me. I was good at what I did. I never said no, which I'll get to in a second. And I also, you know, was always a person they could go to anytime they needed something done. You know, if it's 10 o'clock at night to go do something, 5 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, hey, we need you to go install this alarm, you know, it's a rush job, whatever. I'd be the person they'd call up because they know I would not say no, okay? Now, that is a bad thing in a way. I don't ever condone even living life like that in general, but it did keep me having a job. I didn't get fired because I did do that, right? So I did not, what I always like to call it is a Roseanne Barr syndrome. I never had a Roseanne Barr syndrome. And what I mean by Roseanne Barr syndrome, if you ever remember the show Roseanne, she had Roseanne Barr syndrome, which she'd tell her bosses off right to their face, right? I'm not working tonight, I'm out of here, you know, like, you just can't do that. Like, if you want to live on your own terms, that's fine, but you're going to have some investments, you know, drawing some money in, right? You're definitely going to have to remain employable as well, right? What if these people call, you know, like, yeah, he was only here for 2 months and he just left. He left us high and dry, right? You just can't, like the real world, you can't live like a Roseanne Barr. It just can't, right? You want to remain employed? Then you need to follow those rules and, you know, whatever. You need to kind of suck it up. You need to be a little bitch, I guess, in a way, right? You just need to play the stupid game, right? Now, in this part in my life, you know, luckily nothing has come down to that. In this, you know, part of my career, I live on my own terms. I can do whatever I want. I don't say stupid stuff anymore. I don't say racist things anymore. I'm not a bigot at all. I don't, you know, like I said, I don't really care about race at all. I still think it's funny. I love the jokes, okay? Like I said, I don't get offended when people say, you know, jokes about white people or anything like that. It doesn't bother me at all. But so the very last time I should have got fired, but the reason why I wasn't fired the very last time is they were making a lot of money off of me. Okay, so I was working as a government contractor. Now they were they had the prime on the contract, so they're getting paid, you know, $500,000 for a head or something like that, and they're paying me like $150 or something like that. So they're making a boatload of money off of me, and that's the reason why they didn't fire me. So it's very hard. I was very hard to replace. So if you can put yourself in a situation like that, you're less likely to get fired. Now, number one, I would just say, don't, you know, say stupid stuff. Don't do anything dumb to get fired, right? But at the same time, if you want to live on your own terms, you're gonna have to, you know, keep yourself employable. And you're also going to have to probably have some other investments where you can live off of those. Like I said, I've never been laid off, never been fired in my entire life. So if you want to live like a Roseanne Barr, then you're going to need some investments or something like that, okay? Now, I've dated some girls in the past that had Roseanne Barr syndrome. Well, guess what? They could fall back on me because we're living together and all that stuff. So they had a Roseanne Barr complex, and they told their bosses off. And guess what? They got fired. So anyways, I hope you got something, you know, out of this video and didn't take any offense to anything I said here. It is actually a pretty serious video when you all really think about it. So anyways, until next time, please go ahead and like and subscribe, and we'll see you next video. Thanks for watching.